guys, how are you? I hope everybody is fine. Just a second, I'll record. I'll share screen with you. Just a second. Yes. We have studied the first topic, first and the second topic, in fact. So the next would be first had two parts, as if you remember, and the second we're done with, and the third topic is this now. So I hope everybody is able to see that it's visible to you. Okay. So now types of petition. So we have done Supreme Court rules, High Court rules, and Supreme Court rules 1966, and the topic is the same, and the first the unit is the same, the topic is the same, but the topic has three parts, and now we have moved to the third part, and the third part talks about the petitions. Basically, it's talking about the petitions and various petitions entertained by the Supreme Court. So various petitions entertained by the Supreme Court. We all know, there may be election petition, there may be writ petition, there may be SLVs, there may be some criminal jurisdiction, appellate jurisdiction. There may be civil jurisdiction, civil appellate jurisdiction. So many things that we have studied already. We have studied in our constitution. We have studied in so many other things. So that's election petition is one of the most important, one of the again interesting and important things. And we must be looking at the scenario, what's happening in various states. The governments are being ousted, the governments are being toppled. So in that case, you may be anti-defection laws, and so many things are prevalent. Though so many things are being taken care of. So at the same time, you must have noticed whenever there is a dispute of election of let's say president or various elections. So what is the jurisdiction? And you might have studied about the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court also. Like we have studied that the court of first instance. So there may be some cases where the Supreme Court itself is the court of first instance. Can you tell me what? Like if there is a dispute between center and the state, the original jurisdiction lies within the Supreme Court. If there is a there is a dispute between two states, then again, so these things. And advisory jurisdiction, of course, I told you in the very first lecture, I guess. So the president the president is can ask for the advisory jurisdiction. It's not binding on the president, of course, but the advisory jurisdiction can be obtained under Article 143. So that can be taken care of, and that will study here. And then there's this curative petition is there, and basically in your syllabus it's not everything is not there, everything is they're not asking, but yeah, these are very important basic things that you're expected to know. And at the same time, curative petition is something, of course, you have studied and you will study even now. And review petitions are there and so many things. And in the case of Sabrimala, you might have noticed that the review petition was filed, and again the matter is sub judice. And again, for example, it's a court of five, constitutional bench was there, and then maybe it was not a constitutional bench, and then it goes to the constitutional bench, and then of course again it goes to the higher court. So these things are there. So let's start with that. So readings, though, of course, they're there. So readings, I told you earlier also, and these readings, for first unit, I think these readings are sufficient, and as in when you read from, or wherever you read from Constitution. If you're reading these things, what we are studying today, you can easily get in Jane Pandey, or you can get in MP Jan. So these books you can refer. And so today's topic is types of petition entertained by the Supreme Court, and types of petition, and one more, that you have to deal with, that you have to relate with, like Article 32, Article 136 also, and then the precedents which are set. And one more thing, when we study Constitution, then it's said about the Constitution that there are, we follow the precedents which have been set, and then of course until unless they are overruled, so we follow them. And like for example, Golaknath's case, and Sajjan Kumar case, and then of course the Golaknath case, and then of course this landmark Yashwant Bharti. So maybe if we tomorrow, if we have larger bench, then of course it might also get overruled. And these things are yeah, until unless there is a larger bench. So of course the we have to abide by the precedent. Uh, so we have to abide by the precedent. And one more thing, the Constitution, we have to look at the Constitution, and we have to see the constitutional, where do we get the constitutional authorities, where do we have to read it from, and what are the sources of Constitution and everything. So one is like, constitutional provisions are there until unless they get repealed or they get amended. So of course we have to abide by that. And if that's, they do get amended, and of course the new one comes, sometimes the precedent, there's nothing but the precedents, so we have to follow the precedents. And then the third is, even if there are no precedents, even if there are no constitutional provisions, but we have to abide by the broad principle of the Constitution, the essence of the Constitution that it was written with. So we have to sometimes accept the customs, the norms which have been prevalent. For example, the selection or the appointment of the CJI, let's say, maybe the customs there, or maybe on what grounds do the governors send their report for constitutional the failure of constitutional machinery and all those things, and on what grounds the bills are being reserved by the governors for the president. So these are the governing factors. And do we say that the Supreme Court has the jurisdiction on that also? So yes, we do say that, because whatever alters the basic, whatever alters the basic principle, basic structure of the Constitution, Supreme Court does have the power to intervene. So with these mindsets, so we have to study various petitions. When we study writ petitions, so there are various kind of when we read Article 32, there may be various kinds of writs, and which may include these 5 writs. And the Supreme Court may, the Supreme Court has the power to issue any writs and any orders in order to complete justice. And of course, we read those things in the Supreme Court chapter also. So so these are the petitions that we have to study today. And even if we actually don't read all the petitions, so maybe there are some other factors pertaining to Supreme Court's petition. So I'll suggest to you that do read that, and just make notes, and come up with questions and doubts. So introduction, of course, Supreme Court, of course, we all know that the highest, it's the apex court, and it's the highest legal system, of course. So the final, it's the court which has to decide the final appeal, and ultimately, whenever it pertains to any constitutional law of the land. So ultimate decision, whenever it has to be decided, it has to be decided by the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court's decision is the final decision. And even if there is a law, even if there is a provision which does not seem to be holding good in the eyes of law, the judicial review for that particular law can be taken, and that particular law can be declared unconstitutional. Like recently also we have seen so many cases being declared void. And but as you know, until unless that's done, the laws are very much there, and the Supreme Court has the power to. And even if you file, even if you know you file a case and you file a PIL, or you file a petition that declare it as unconstitutional, so that can also be done, and that can be declared by the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court in that regard has extensive powers, and in order to, of course, original jurisdiction is there. I told you, appellate jurisdiction is definitely there, because every appeal has to reach, or not every appeal has to reach us, but every appeal ultimately may reach to the Supreme Court, and if the Supreme Court decides to hear that, so that's the thing that Supreme Court has to take care, and Supreme Court has to decide, and that's the law. That's the law of the land. That ultimately, if it gets decided by the Supreme Court, then it is the final outcome of the case. Until unless that gets curative petition is filed against it, or maybe review petition is filed, or maybe if it's a case of sentence, that sentence and pardoning is has been granted or something. So so again, Article 145 empowers the Supreme Court to make rules. Of course, it gives the Supreme Court, in the, this is something that we are taught we had studied in the very first lecture also, that the Supreme Court is Supreme Court has been empowered to. Supreme Court is actually empowered to do complete justice, and in order to do that, the administrative works can be decided by the Supreme Court itself, and it is empowered, and even the high courts are empowered to make their own rules, so that there's the smooth functioning of the court, and the conduct, and the like. This is all what we have studied in the last 3 classes. Okay, so again, in the exercise of the powers conferred by Article 145, the Supreme Court framed the Supreme Court rules. We have studied the rules again. They have been amended. They have been again amended, and then they have been again amended. So whenever you feel the need to amend it, so of course the Supreme Court itself can amend it. And the rules, they regulate on practice and procedure of the court, and office procedure of judicial side, as in what is the nature of the process. And see, process, and I told you earlier also, it doesn't decide the rights and liabilities as such. It decides how effectively you can adopt the procedure to, which will help the procedure established by law help you get justice. And again, there's some schedules, there's some orders. They're talking about the senior advocates designation. They're talking about advocates on records and all those things. Supreme Court itself is dealing with all those things. Okay, and this is also done to give them an independence, so that Supreme Court's lawyers and Supreme Court, not Supreme Court lawyers, Supreme Court judges, they and Supreme Court itself, they don't feel threatened by an outside power or outside approach, and they actually regulate the conduct of their own institution, so that we can ensure independent judiciary. Okay, and that's very important also. Okay, so this is very important, and I'm sure you all know that. And these jurisdictions, I'm sure you have read all those jurisdictions, and the Supreme Court entertains petition falling under its different jurisdiction. The jurisdiction is they can be broadly classified into appellate jurisdiction, extraordinary appellate jurisdiction, original jurisdiction, extraordinary original jurisdiction, advisory jurisdiction, and an inherent and plenary jurisdiction. Like, see, first is appellate jurisdiction. It's very simple. It's nothing. It's like once the case is decided, like for example, if it's a criminal trial, the case gets decided by the trial court, and then the case gets decided by the maybe by the higher, not maybe, of course, if it's murder trial. So of course the trial court decides it, district session judge decides it, and then of course it goes to the high court, and then of course subject to the provisions of CRPC 376 onwards, if I'm not wrong, yes. So 376, 377 onwards. So all those things, like when the appellant can file an appeal as a matter of right, and when appeal can be filed on conviction, when appeal can be filed on acquittal, all those things, and then of course it goes to the Supreme Court. So now up till the High Court, it's not the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Once the case is a fit case to be entertained by the Supreme Court. So of course, under Section 130, under Article 134, 134A, 133, all the 132 also, I guess, they all are dealing with the appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, and there's this proper. We'll read about it also in a second. So these, like, if the High Court certifies that is the fit case, that if it involves a substantial question of law, or maybe which needs to be decided by the Supreme Court, if it all those things are there, and so the case, and if there is a death sentence, or maybe 7 years of no punishment is there, so of course it has to be decided by the Supreme Court in that case. So it goes directly to the in the appellate jurisdiction. It means, like, you cannot get a murder case tried directly by the Supreme Court. You, like, for example, if there is a murder that happens directly, you cannot approach the Supreme Court and tell that court that please try this case. No, it's not going to happen. The Supreme Court will take that matter in its appellate jurisdiction. So of course we cannot overburden the Supreme Court with all these things, because there's this hierarchy and that we need to follow. And that's it. Okay, so and extraordinary jurisdiction also, like, for example, directly you file a case in its SLP, special leave petition. Also, you directly file. For example, uh, there is a bail application which needs imminent adjudication, and the 136 is it's a fit case of SLP. So directly you appeal, you file that appeal, you file that case in the directly as an SLP. So and directly maybe maybe Supreme Court takes up the matter, or all those things. So it's not in your original jurisdiction. It's not your original. It's not your court of. It's not the case of court of first instance. Rather, it's a case where you actually the matter was being heard elsewhere. Now you have actually taken up the matter, or maybe writ was applied, and then you have actually you are trying that case. So, again, similarly, original jurisdiction is something, of course, original jurisdiction is not in an ordinary manner. Like, one murder happens, or, one big, huge murder, or, pogrom, or let's say, I hope you know the difference between pogrom and massacre. So, massacre happens, or, in that case, you're not going to get into the trial of Supreme Court directly, because it doesn't happen like that. So you have to get it tried by the trial court, and then of course High Court, and then it may actually reach to the Supreme Court. So, but originally, what does it mean that if the Supreme Court has the original jurisdiction, it means that it was to be tried by the Supreme Court directly. No other court had the concurrent jurisdiction. Concurrent jurisdiction, as in otherwise, like, for example, if a lower court is trying a case, then all these higher courts, they have the concurrent jurisdiction. They can always take up the matter, like we studied extraordinary appellate jurisdiction also, and they can always take up the matter and directly try that. Okay, and through rates, or through transfer of cases, through maybe just taking up the matter, or in order to do complete justice. But when we talk about original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, it means that the Supreme Court has the jurisdiction. No other court has the jurisdiction, because in the matters of the matter between the center and the state, the river disputes, the disputes between two states. In these matters, only the Supreme Court has power to adjudicate. And if that is the case, only the Supreme Court is the final authority. Supreme Court has to try, and no other High Court can try the case. If there is a dispute between Delhi or Haryana, or there is a different dispute between Haryana and Punjab, so no High Court. And in fact, Haryana and Punjab, they have the same. They share a common High Court, so it doesn't fit in the example. But let's say Delhi and Haryana, they have a dispute, and so neither the Delhi High Court has the jurisdiction, nor the Haryana Punjab High Court has the jurisdiction. Punjab and Haryana, they don't have the jurisdiction. You have to get into the Supreme Court. So when you must have seen whenever there is a dispute between the Delhi government and the central government, so they actually generally, because if there is a dispute, let's say there is a dispute between the center and the state, you directly approach the Supreme Court. Okay, so if there is a water dispute, or there is a there is a dispute between two states also, then no High Court has a jurisdiction, only the Supreme Court has a jurisdiction. Okay, so one more thing, advisory jurisdiction, what does it mean? We had studied earlier also under Article 143, the president. And who is the president? I mean, president is through the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. Prime President, he or she asks the Supreme Court to, kindly, like for example, you must have seen in the Ray Berubri Union case, whenever the president is, whenever the president feels that president, as in the government, I would say, and government as in like Council of Minister and the headed by the Prime Minister. So whenever they feel that if we pass a law, just look at the chronology, just look at the cycle. Like for example, if we pass a law today, if the government passes a law today, and how does it pass a law? You have to table it in one of the parliaments, one of the houses, and then it gets passed by that particular. Let's say it's a constitutional amendment bill, and the bill gets passed, gets tabled, and gets passed by the Rajya Sabha, and then goes into the Lok Sabha and does get passed there also. Then goes to the president, and the president signs it, and it becomes an act, constitutional amendment act, and whatever the even if it was ratification by the state or whatever it is, let's say 368 was to apply, or anything was to apply, and that has applied. Okay, so and in that case, that has happened, and now what you want is, the constitution stands amended. Maybe fundamental right vis-a-vis any other thing. The constitution does stand amended today. Now, what is the case? What is the thing? Now some people just get up and they say this actually is, this particular amendment is violative of my fundamental right. This is violative of my basic structure. So this shouldn't have been done. Please abrogate it, and please repeal that, and please and they actually, these people, they approach the Supreme Court and they ask the Supreme Court to kindly declare it as unconstitutional. That is something that we have seen back then, in 1950s also we saw that. 1970s, 60, 50s, 60s, 70s, and ultimately Keshav Bharti happened, and we keep looking at, keep seeing that every now and then. So, and Shreya Singh's case we also saw, and all those things we saw, and that happens, that keeps happening. And if you think that if an article, if a provision is violative of your fundamental right, or it needs to be taken judicial review of it, it needs to be declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, and then you can always approach the Supreme Court. So, in order to avoid that, like the government, they did pass the economic quota bill, and they have done some things constitutionally. So, if they knew that these uh, passing of bills, these making laws, they will have repercussions. They will have repercussions to that extent that that Supreme Court will be thronged. It will be burdened with a lot of petitions. A lot of petitions will be filed. A lot of PILs will be filed. A lot of things will be filed. So it's actually better not to encourage litigation, because Supreme Court will be overburdened again, because 20 thousands of applications will be filed every day, and they will ask for the abrogation of this particular law. Maybe it's a controversial law, let's say. So in that case, what the president does is he or she asks the Supreme Court to give an advisory jurisdiction. No, it is not going to be binding on the government. It is not going to be binding on the Supreme Court also to give that. But yeah, so that if we do something of this sort, so please advise us. Advise us. Don't. It's not binding. What is what is going to be the legality of that? Of course, so Supreme Court may give the advisory, give the advice, if you do that, what is going to be the legality of that, and if it pertains to any foreign treaty or something, then Supreme Court should do it. So those things, no, that's something that advisory jurisdiction is very, very important or comes handy at when you are about to pass a law which may have, uh, which may create litigation. So in that case, instead of getting into that, getting directly into the passing of that bill, you first ask for the advisory, and then you maybe you may amend that particular law accordingly, so that it doesn't hold bad in the eyes of law ultimately. So, inherent jurisdiction and plenary jurisdiction, of course, inherent jurisdiction, like all these things, whatever the Supreme Court is bound to hear, bound to, um, have the jurisdiction for, like the things that we have studied, and election petition also. For example, if there is this petition of president's elections, of course, Supreme Court will have the power to, all those things. So basically, all these things, whenever some certain things have to be decided, let's say certain things, certain elections result have to be decided, or so many other things. So directly, they have the inherent power to do that. So, again, arbitration proceedings also. Arbitration is something that is the need of the hour also, and that's very, very prevalent also because of the nature of the market today we have. So, sometimes directly, as per the arbitration, now although it stands amended also, the parties are free to agree on a procedure for appointing the arbitrator or arbitrators. Of course, in some cases, the parties fail to, what happens is, like we were just discussing about now after the 2018 amendment, 2018 and 2019 also, it has been amended many times. 2015, though it was arbitration act was amended a lot. So, whenever it's talking about arbitration petition, as in, whenever we talk about the arbitrator has not been appointed by either of the parties, and there was an arbitration clause, and it had to be arbitrarily decided, or not arbitrarily decided, but it has to be decided by the arbitration proceedings. So, this thing, when the arbitrator could not decided, and the institution designated, as in the council is created now after 2019 amendment, there has to be a panel, there has to be a council, there has to be a proper institution for these things. So all those things, Supreme Court, in fact the Chief Justice and all these things, all these Supreme Court and Chief Justice, they have, particularly Chief Justice, they have a very heavy say in these things. So that is what we call arbitration petitions. So if we fail to appoint an arbitrator, so that will be decided by the Supreme Court of India. Okay, so this is like civil petition we were talking about. The civil, as in like civil appeal. So when it lies to the High Court, so basically an appeal lies to the Supreme Court from the judgment, decree, or order. So that's something that I'm sure you have done, you have studied already. If it's an order, if it's even if it's an order, like I hope I'm sure you know the difference between decree, order, and judgment. So in all these things, if that has been decided by the High Court, nobody else, if that has been decided by the High Court, then of course you directly can go to the Supreme Court. But there is a catch, that is, if it involves a substantial question of law, and the case involves a substantial question of general importance. If either of these two things, and either one or two, matlab ki the third one has to be there, and the High Court uh, opines that it needs to be decided by the Supreme Court. Okay, so basically, either it involves a substantial question of law, or maybe it's a case where general importance is concerned, and in either of the cases, High Court is concerned, High Court is satisfied that it needs to be decided by the Supreme Court. So of course, that shall be decided by the a civil appeal gets admitted, and the Supreme Court will decide about the case. And again, upon grant of special, like for example, even if it doesn't come through the civil appeal, and directly you file an application under Article 136 and special leave petition, and directly Supreme Court may take the direct action. Like no, nothing else is required. No certification from High Court is required, and 136. This is the jurisdiction of the court. Special leave petition, the Supreme Court can entertain an SLP, and directly it gets adjudicated by the Supreme Court through SLP. Okay, similarly, that happens in the High Court, in the criminal jurisprudence also, criminal appeal also. Like if there is an appeal and subject to the, like, there are, for example, in CRPC, certain things are to be definitely going to the Supreme Court. So of course, that's they will definitely go to the Supreme Court. And the same things are there. If the High Court certifies, the High Court is a certifying authority. Again, if it involves a substantial question of law and all those things. Suppose it goes to the Supreme Court in the criminal matter also, and there are certain things. Like for example, if it's a death sentence, so of course, as a matter of right, the convicted person who has been awarded a death sentence, he or she will be definitely, have a right to approach the Supreme Court, and it shall be admitted by the Supreme Court. Again, if it is a case of an SLP, directly it can be adjudicated by the against judgment, decree, determination, sentence, or whatever it was. So 136 may you can have the Supreme Court can have the jurisdiction through SLP. So again, SLP, what is SLP? We have been studying SLP. What is SLP? So petition for special leave. Special, as the name itself suggests, that it has to be special. It should not be added. It should not be considered as a matter of right. Sparingly, as in, like, whenever there is an imminent need to so that failure of justice would occur otherwise. So there is an imminent need that needs to be adjudicated upon, and then Supreme Court must take the matter and admit the matter, so that justice doesn't hamper. So either criminal or civil. So these petitions are filed under under Article 136, the Constitution, from an order of High Court on refusal to grant the certificate. What does it mean? So otherwise, if the High Court had granted the this thing certification, so of course you would have the technicality involved in here is, if the High Court had decided had given you the certificate to appeal to the Supreme Court, so of course there's no need to get into 136. Why? Because then you would have gotten under Article 135, 33, 34, 35. So why? Because you have been given an NOC, and you have been given an authority also. Let's say you have been given permission by the High Court that you may go to the Supreme Court. It involves, like, all those things that we studied. It involves a question of law that needs to be determined, that needs to be taken care of by the Supreme Court, and the certificate was given to you. But in SLP, the prerequisite is that it may be a civil or criminal case, and that has to be special. That has to be, that has to have some merit, that it requires immediate attention, and the High Court has refused to grant the certificate of fitness of appeal. The High Court is of the opinion that it does not required to be adjudicated by the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court is not actually not dependent on that certificate if it is filed under Article 136, and Supreme Court may directly admit the petition through SLP and may decide that adjudicate. Petition for special leave to appeal can also be filed in any other case from any judgment. This. So basically, directly, there is no need There's no need to have gone through the various things. Directly, if you think that the matter is a matter that needs adjudication by the Supreme Court, directly you can approach the SLP, and can approach the Supreme Court under Article 136 and may request for the admission of SLP and may request for the adjudication. So these articles are made or carved out in such a manner that, Supreme Court is not entitled. Supreme Court, sorry, not entitled. Supreme Court is not duty bound to take your SLP. It may reject your SLP also if it doesn't find any merit in that. That there is an alternative way that you have to go through, but it doesn't require immediate action. That you have to go through the same process, because of course Supreme Court cannot take every matter like this, and if it doesn't require too much attention right now, and that there is this alternative remedy that is available, so you should ask the person to have gone through the alternative and the normal course of nature or normal course of law. So rather than just getting into an SLP, otherwise it will be made a routine manner, a routine exercise. So again, SLP for SLP, and again one more thing. One, if fundamental right has been abridged or infringed, then you file a petition under Article 32. An application under Article, you move the court under Article 32. There, because the Supreme Court is the custodian of our fundamental rights, Supreme Court will not refuse to you. Supreme Court will entertain that. But under Article 136, if you have gone through, definitely it might have been a case of infringement of fundamental right or anything else. Not necessarily fundamental right. Anything else, if you think that which requires an immediate attention, you can directly approach the Supreme Court under Article 136. But here, discretion lies with the Supreme Court, that it doesn't have to, because it's not anymore the it's not the custodian wala part, that Supreme Court is the custodian of fundamental rights. So 32 mein they will definitely admit it. 136 mein they may ask you to get into the normal course of remedy also. So again, election petition, that's important and interesting. So election to the offices of the president, vice president is regulated by the Presidential and Vice Presidential Election 1952. So basically, if there is any doubt in the election process, like you may say that this person this person holds an office of profit, or this should be declared null and void. This doesn't hold good in the eyes of law, and all those things. So what you can do is you can, not you of course, but there the original jurisdiction lies with the Supreme Court, and election petitions are filed in the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court is to decide whether the person holds any office of profit, or whether the ballot votes were counted properly, or whatever the doubts were there. So that has to be decided by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court only has the jurisdiction to decide that. So again, writ petition is important. Writ petition, the Supreme Court under Article 32, whenever there is an infringement of your fundamental right. See, Article 32 just talks about the infringement of fundamental rights, and Article 32 says that whenever there is a writ, whenever there is a violation of your fundamental right, so you can move the court under Article 32. Supreme Court will definitely will look into the matter and give you the remedy, give you the justice. So infringement of fundamental right in a civil case other than habeas corpus are registered as writ petition civil, and which includes habeas corpus, that is registered as writ petition criminal. So of course, in civil cases, you don't file writ petition habeas corpus. And of course, in PIL, public interest, if it is a PIL, and the whole jurisprudence was developed in 1980s, as far as PIL is concerned, have a look at it, and it's important and are registered. So of course, in all those things, it may be, yes, the Supreme Court may file, may issue a writ petition. It may be either criminal or civil. So of course, under Article 32 is there, or otherwise it can be issued. So it may be civil, it may be criminal. Supreme Court actually, it needs to be there, that Supreme Court, in order to do a complete justice. So as the name suggests, review petition and curative petition. So review petition, Supreme Court thinks that it needs to be given more like in Sabrimala case and so many other cases, that Supreme Court thinks, if you think that it needs to give more deliberation upon these things, so they may file they may actually consider the review petition, and maybe the higher court, maybe the larger bench may hear the matter. So, Supreme Court has the power to review its own judgment. So, last time when we had heard it, so these things were, or maybe, let's reconsider it. And so that, in order to do even more justice, let's reconsider it. And people, maybe, there may be more angles to this thing. So let's reconsider it. So you may review the petition. Curative petition is something to prevent the abuse of its process and to cure a gross miscarriage of justice. So may reconsider. So Supreme Court may reconsider its judgment. So if the Supreme Court is of the opinion that because of certain things, there the facts could not be presented, the facts were altered or anything of that sort. If the Supreme Court thinks fit that there it needs more deliberation, and I think curative as in I think the Supreme Court thinks maybe it should be cured because of various reasons. It could the real matter could not actually come out. So let's reconsider it, and let's reconsider the curative petition. So whenever the strong reasons they're there, that that there is a gross injustice, miscarriage of justice, otherwise will be the consequence. And if we don't reconsider it, it will actually be very, very difficult for the person to irreparable loss will actually happen. So let's reconsider it. So only, I'm reading it for you, only when very strong reasons exist, the Supreme Court entertains an application seeking reconsideration of its final order, which has become final on the dismissal of the review petition. So the order came, the final appeal, let's say, that had come, and you file the review petition that gets rejected. And of course, you only have the curative petition. Please reconsider it. You will ask the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court, if it finds that there is a gross miscarriage of justice or gross, not it will be irreparable and all those things. So of course, you may allow the curative petition. So this way we come to an end for next topic. And next time when we meet, we'll take up a new topic. So meanwhile, just read it, and whatever petitions we have read, there are some more petitions to it. Just read all those things so that there's nothing left. And I hope that you're following the lectures and you are uh, reading what you are supposed to read. All right, I take you leave. Take care.